Is this thing on? Are we live? Well, it helps if I turn the volume down on the YouTube channel. Well, hey, everybody. Andy here. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're doing a little impromptu live stream with my buddy Brent from Smolder Outdoors. We'll bring him out here in a second. Tonight's conversation is going to mainly revolve around a couple different paddling trips that each of us did recently. He did a big trip out to Missouri and hit the Current River for a multi-day trek with some friends in some kayaks. So we'll talk about that. I want to hear a lot about his trip and see how it went and what went well and what didn't go so well. And I think that was his first one. So I'm kind of curious just everything that went into it. He's already talking about doing another one. So we'll have to see how it went. And then we've got potentially plans to maybe do it again with me next year. So that would be a lot of fun. And then we'll talk a little bit about my trip. I went up to the Boundary Waters in Minnesota and did a little, we were on the water from Saturday to Sunday, or from Sunday to Saturday. So a week-long trip. Had a lot of fun, some fishing, some canoeing, some portaging and all that fun stuff. So we'll talk about that. And we'll talk a little bit about an upcoming trip, which we just booked. So it's official, and where we're going and what we're doing and when that's going to be. We'll get into all of that as well. But we want to hear from you guys too. So, I see some of you are already here in the chat. We've got In Our Element. We are here. Hi, guys. Tammy's here. We've got Joey's dead. A fan of mine, one of my kids' friends. So welcome to everybody. The more the merrier. Join in the conversation as we go along. This is supposed to be a collaboration. So Brent and all of you out there. So let's go ahead and bring my buddy Brent out. Hey, sir.
What's up, buddy? Doing? Good. Nice to finally have a working camera and mic to be able to do one of these with you.
Well, I wouldn't mention that right off the bat.
We're only
true. 10 seconds in. We've been testing his gear this week. If you've seen any of the other previous live streams that I've done, the running joke is that either his camera works or his microphone works, but it's never both at the same time. And you can go back and see multiple examples of that. So I'm glad that you're here live and I can actually hear you and see you at the same time.
Right. I'm glad too, man. It's nice to finally be able to take part in one of these with you.
How have you been? Good?
Good. Been really good. Trying to adjust back to life after trips and keep everything going and plan for new trips. But things are good.
That's always a challenge, isn't it? Coming back into the workplace after you've been gone on a trip and something epic, and then you come back to like the grind, and
always
hits you like a ton of bricks on day one. So.
Yep.
Well, this will be a little reprieve from you midweek. Then we'll do this little live stream and bring you back into the trip because I want to hear all about it, everything that you guys did, how you even got started. Because, to set the stage, I think you and I had a conversation probably about a year ago. And I said, we've been doing this backpacking thing and that's been a lot of fun. And, then we added, let's climb a 14er or something like that out in Colorado. And then I threw out, what I think you'd really get into is, bringing the water into it if we did like a boating trip or something like that. And I had done a few of them at that point in time. And I think your response was something to the effect of, yeah, no.
I have no interest in that. None whatsoever.
I have no interest in that. So in the span of about a year, roughly, right? You went from that to where are you now?
2 boats in, and now I've done it once. That was the first overnight trip. That was the first one where I've gone for more than just a day, and completely hooked. Like, absolutely love it. Can't wait to get back out there again and do it again. You were right. I'll give you that. You were right. It's fun. It's something that I should have done. Awesome change of pace for summertime, just to get off the trail when it's miserably hot and
Yeah.
sweaty outside, and to be out on the water. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So
I was
yeah,
going to say
you
that's
were
really
right.
a nice component of it too, is on the sweltering, summer days where you're paddling down. It's not so uncommon to let me pull off to the side and I'm going to jump in and cool off. And so just incorporating the water, I think is a lot of fun. So,
Yeah, for sure.
all right. So you went from total naysayer to how did you get to this point of actually planning a trip? What went into over the last few months, getting your own boat, all of that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I actually bought a boat towards the tail end of last summer. It was a Wilderness Systems sit on top, and I thought, hey, this will be great. Like, I can stash all my gear on it. This is going to be a fantastic boat. And after using it a couple times, while it is a great boat, it was not the boat that I wanted for doing this kind of trip, this kind of thing. The center of gravity was too high. The boat was too heavy for portages. It wasn't exactly what I wanted. So did a ton of research.
How
Watched.
heavy was the boat?
The boat was 63 pounds dry. That's without adding anything on it. So no camera mounts, no gear, no me. And then when you throw all that stuff into it, it was ridiculous. So did a ton of research, YouTube, internet, forums, Facebook, and started following a couple channels on YouTube, started watching a lot of content, and got an idea for what I wanted. So a couple months ago, I bought another boat, and this time I did get a sit-in boat.
Okay, before you get into that, so who did you watch? What were some of the channels from an inspiration standpoint that you look to?
Sure. So probably the one that stood out the most was the River Kings channel. Pete Beck, all those guys. Granted, they're all in pre-on Yukon boats, which are a couple grand, and I was not diving that far into it right off the bat. But learning a lot about packing a boat, planning trips, just what they bring along. These guys are awesome. So if you guys like this kind of stuff, definitely give them a subscribe, give them a follow, start watching some of their content. They don't just do kayak camping expeditions like this where they're gone for 5, 6, 7 days doing 150, 200-mile trips. They've done source to confluence trips. They've done a lot of stuff, but they also do a ton of whitewater, like what you're seeing right now.
Is this what you were doing? Is this you? Is this you?
Much smaller scale. There were a couple waves along the way, a couple little bumps. Nothing slow mo worthy, but yeah, it was nothing like that. Um, but yeah, it was really inspirational watching these guys. I learned a lot. Not even just about the kayak camping side, but just paddling in general. Pete does a ton of instructional on there. And I learned a lot just from watching them, and it just built up this desire to do this even more. The more that I watched, the more I wanted to do it. So, shout out to them. Check them out if it's something you're interested in. They were an awesome resource for me.
Wow.
So then, I guess back to my own planning.
Yeah.
I had to find the boat that was right for me. So I ended up going with Perception Carolina 12. Hindsight, I probably should have got the 14, but hey, why not? Why not go on to boat number 3 for the next one or something? We'll see.
So before you get into even like that part, what's important in a boat? Like what was your criteria? What did you look for?
Sure. So I wanted low center of gravity. That was something I learned from being on a sit on top versus a sit in. Is I definitely did want the low center of gravity. Decent sized dry hatches. Everyone knows dry hatches are not dry hatches. They are kind of dry hatches. But I wanted decent sized hatches to where I could bring some extra gear with me. I wasn't strapping a whole bunch of stuff to the top of the boat, messing with the center of gravity. Maneuverability, was a big one, something that I could turn on the rivers. I didn't end up going with a boat with a rudder, but I could see doing that in the future just to aid in that. Um, and then price always comes into play. I had a budget in mind, and I was able to stick to that budget, so that was definitely a bonus. Again, research, trying to find something that wasn't just a designated recreational boat or just a designated touring boat, but finding something in the middle, something that was kind of a crossover. And that's why I settled on that boat. It checked the boxes for me, and it worked great for the trip.
How many different categories of kayaks are there? Like, to be honest, I know a little bit more about the canoeing
Hmm.
side of things. I've never really looked at the kayak stuff. Um, I mean, you just
Yeah.
mentioned what recreational and touring. I don't even know what those
Yep.
things are. Can you
Recreational
describe
boats
what they
are
are?
boats that you're going to take out and you're going to go paddle on a lake or a river during the day. Just something that's more for the masses. Touring boats are typically longer, sleeker, thinner, much more expensive. But a lot of touring boats you'll find are 16-foot plus, ocean kayaks, stuff like that.
Okay.
And I didn't really want to go with either one of those. I didn't want to push a recreational boat past what it should, and I didn't want to go full on touring. So I was looking for a crossover, something to
Okay.
kind of bridge the gap between the two that I can toss up on a Jeep by myself and take down to the local river or local lake and take out, but something that I can also do multi-day kayak camping in.
Okay.
And the perception worked for that.
Okay. Yeah. The only experience I think I've ever had kayaking, and I can probably pull this up and show everybody, um, is sea kayaks. That's the only
Hmm.
time. So this was us on our trip to the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we got to do a little section here of St. John, going through some of the coves. You never went out onto like really open water; it was all protected, but it was really pretty cool to, um, go through an area like that. But it wasn't overnight; it
Yeah.
wasn't camping; it was day tripping kind of deal. So that's that's the level of my my
Yeah.
knowledge is. I rented one for a day, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And yeah, I mean, the boat worked out great. So I'm definitely happy with it. In the future, would I like a 14 footer? Probably. Little longer, a little more storage space, something with a rudder on it just to aid in some of the tighter turns, some of the steering. But for what I wanted, for what my budget was, the boat worked out great. I didn't have any complaints with it on the trip.
Okay,
So
but you're already eyeing the next one.
I am, but I'm always eyeing the next one, dude. You know me.
I do.
I'm a gear
I do.
junkie. I
Yeah.
always want the newest fun thing to play with.
Well, I
So
think too, it's tough. We all go through this, and as we're learning something, a new field, sometimes we don't even know the questions to ask, or we don't even know what type of tripping we plan on doing. So, if it's multi-day, if it's day kayak, if it's you showed the video of what was it, the River Kings, some of the stuff that they do, and
mhm.
there's all different styles for all different things. So I guess until you really get out and test some of those things out and try some of them out, then it's inherent that you're going to find things that, oh yeah, I don't really like this about this, or I really love this feature, and then you start to really customize. I mean, I know with our backpacking gear, it's definitely been that sort of thing where we've tried different tents, we've tried different air pads, we've tried hammocking, we've tried a whole range of different things, backpacks, water filtration systems, and you kind of go through that iteration of, I'd rather it do this, so I'm going to drop that one and I'm going to bring this new system in and try that out. Oh, I really love that, and that's now becomes part of the kit. So I'm not surprised that kayaks are the same
The
type of
same way.
thing. And,
Yep.
and to be honest, the more I think I've talked to you about these kind of things, the more I realize just how deep that pool is also for the kayaking stuff, and how my knowledge is at the surface. So I'll be asking a
Yeah.
ton of questions. I'm sure you have too. Watching the YouTube video and then asking other people that have done that kind of thing. What makes sense? Um, I guess that's
Yeah.
that's kind of the way it goes. So
It's just like backpacking. You do a ton of research. You think that you have everything figured out. You think you know exactly what you want, and then you take it out and you want something different. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes it does. But yeah, it's just like backpacking in that sense.
Okay. Okay.
So
So then, when did you get the newer boat? How long's that been?
I got that about 2 months before the trip.
Okay.
And this was actually the first time I had it on the water. So I had not even paddled on it before that trip. I had a lot of plans to, and things kept happening, and we just weren't able to get it out. So the steering's not the best when you guys watch the video. For about the first couple miles of the trip until I got a feel for the boat and figured it out. But yeah, there's a lot of little chops in there of like, hey, I got to chop it here because then I spin in a circle, or like, definitely don't
You got to
want to show
leave that
to the
stuff in.
world.
You got to
So
leave that.
no, that's why it's here.
Is this the
That's
same
why it's
boat
here.
that you flipped over on the river in Indy?
It is not. So that was
That
the
was
sit
the
on
old
top.
one.
That was the
Okay.
Wilderness Systems. Yep.
So you were such an expert in that one. You flipped that going down a river about 3 miles an hour.
Not my fault. You did not tell me you were going to bring this story up tonight. But since you did,
how could we not? Right, a fish jumps in his lap or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that the story?
So it was jumping in the water. It's on the video. Dude, watch the video. It's on the video. And you can even hear me in the background saying, hey, you see that fish jumping over there? And you see it jump twice, and then it's, whoa, it's in the boat. And it was in my lap. And
and then the boat goes over.
In all my haste, I leaned the wrong way and dumped the boat and lost the camera in the process.
Yeah,
so.
That sucks. The 360 camera, huh?
Yep. And then I replaced it right afterwards. So
with a newer model, yeah.
I did, but I wanted to anyways. Had a big scratch in the lens. I have been wanting to replace that camera for a while, so it was time.
Okay. So you got the new one a couple months ago. Yep. And then you got it for this trip, though, correct? The one that you just did?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
So you knew I've got a... Okay, so what was the parameters of the trip that you were going on? How many days? Give me kind of a rundown. I know you went out to the Current River, and you sent me the map. I can pull that up here so you can talk a little bit about what you were looking at doing.
Yeah, so this is the trip that we settled on. I did go with another couple, and then Megan, my girlfriend, came with as well, so it was the four of us. And if it was me, I was looking at doing a longer trip, but judging by the group, I came up with basically 3 trip options and laid them all out to the group, explained the pluses and minuses of all of them, and kind of let the group decide as a whole. I didn't want to just dictate the trip and say, hey, here's what it is, come if you want. I wanted it to be a group effort, and this is the one that we settled on. Okay. There was one that was a little bit shorter than this, where we started at that second waypoint. So the trip starts at the top left and goes down to the bottom right of the screen.
Okay.
So we started at Baptist Camp on our trip. We had one option that had us potentially starting at Cedar Grove, which is the next stop down. It's about 5 miles down, I believe.
Okay.
And we just decided that was too short for trying to do a 3-day, 2-night trip. There was another one that's not listed on here that would have started at Cedar Grove and gone down past Round Spring, which is where we finished, and it would have gone all the way down to Two Rivers, which I don't know if it's on that map. Since it's All Trails, that's a hiking app instead of a paddling app, but there's one called Two Rivers.
Two Rivers Campground.
There you go. Two Rivers is the confluence of the Current River and the Jack's Fork River. It's where the Jack's Fork ends and then runs into the Current and then continues on from there. That one was going to be about 46, 47 miles.
Okay.
And we settled on this option instead. This was the middle option. So we basically took Cedar Grove and tacked another 5 miles onto the front end of it. And started at the Baptist camp put in. That is The highest put in on the river that is commonly used, and I use the term commonly used lightly. Not many people put in at Baptist just because of river conditions between Baptist and Cedar Grove. It was definitely the toughest stretch of the entire river.
Oh, so people cut that out to make it easier?
They do, because there's a lot of boats dragging the bottom. There are trees down, tight turns. It's just a much tougher section of the river, but it's also one of the most beautiful parts of the river because not as many people do it.
Okay.
So you're not fighting crowds or people. I mean, when we got to the put-in on a Friday morning on the 4th of July weekend, there was, I think, one other car there. That was it. So it was great to have that section of the river to ourselves, but it was definitely tough. And it was challenging. I wouldn't recommend it for beginning kayakers. We probably shouldn't have done it. But we made it through.
Just you guys doing donuts down the first part? Is that what you were doing?
A little bit. Mainly me because I was learning a new boat. I think Megan paddled better than I did through that section.
All right. So there's a question from Tanya. What kind of kayak does she have, and had she been before? Is she a newbie too?
So Megan has done a decent amount of day paddling. She's done a lot down the White River here in Indiana. She's done a couple other places. So she's not new to paddling, but it was her first overnight / multi-night trip that she's done as well on the water.
Okay.
She has I believe it's a Pelican Mustang kayak. It's a Dick's Sporting Goods kayak. It's about $400. It's a 10-footer. So it was fine for starting out. That was her first boat that she bought herself versus renting boats. But I think she has her eyes set on a bigger, nicer boat too.
Okay.
She's been looking at the current designs boats like the Kestrel 135, built for smaller frame paddlers. It's just say it's a nice boat, Andy.
Okay.
It's a nice boat.
I mean, you could throw names and numbers out, and I'll be like, yeah, it sounds sweet. The Kestrel? Everybody loves the Kestrel.
It's one that's designed for small frame paddlers.
Okay. Is it a sit-in or a sit-on?
It is. It's a sit-in. She is a big fan of sit-ins, and she has no interest in sit-ons. So
because they have a low center of gravity.
Yep.
Right.
You sit down deeper into the boat. You have more control over it. You can lock your knees and turn. There's a lot of benefits to a sit-in when you're doing more than just recreational paddling.
Okay. Now, would you consider this mostly recreational paddling? What you did this trip down the current?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely doable. And sit on tops. I mean, all the outfitters have the Jackson kayak sit on tops. I wouldn't have wanted to do that first section in one. Just because of all the trees down, tight turns in the river. You can see it on the map how tight some of those turns are. And a lot of those have trees down at them, root balls on the sides. Like it was pretty gnarly in sections. There was one tree down that you could just barely fit under if you leaned all the way back, and it had a big chainsaw blade sticking out of it in the middle of the river. So not something that you really want to mess with.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely the toughest section was that top section. So yeah.
So how'd you pick this place? From going from somebody that's never done a trip like this to planning a trip. How far away was this? How long of a drive?
It was about a 7-hour drive for me from Indy each way.
So that's a decent sized trip though. Like,
yeah.
Is it something unique about this versus something closer to home? What drew you to this? What made the choice?
Yeah. So when I got the idea to do this and I decided finally, hey, this is the year, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do a multi-night kayaking trip and try it out. I actually put a post on Facebook and asked for some feedback from anyone who's done this kind of thing. Do they have any suggestions? And Jason Wish jumped in and gave me a ton of information on a bunch of trips up in Michigan. I looked at some in Kentucky, and I talked with backpacking with Jason a little bit on some of the Kentucky, Tennessee area stuff. And then I found Pete's channel, The River Kings, and saw the current river video. Um, Googled a bunch of stuff on that area down there, the Missouri Scenic Rivers. It was drivable. 7 hours is totally doable.
Okay.
And I just, my heart got set on that one. After seeing pictures of some of the points on this river, some of the springs, just the area with it being a national scenic river, so the way that it's maintained without dams, without any obstructions in the river, that's what I wanted. I wanted that natural feel and just in a beautiful scenic place. And then the fact that it's all naturally spring fed and the water coming out of those springs is around like 50 degrees, and it just pumps millions of gallons of that cold water a day into that river. That seemed like a pretty good idea for the 4th of July heat.
Gotcha.
And it didn't disappoint. I mean, the temperature down on the water was around 70 degrees when the air temps were in the upper 80s. So
Okay.
it was great being on the water. It was refreshing to jump in the water. Never ending source of availability to cool off.
Okay. So, okay. So 7 hours away, you pull the trigger on this one. Sounds like it's got a ton of great features, a good beginner course potentially, but it's not just the two of you. So who do you guys
Right.
pair up with? How does that come about?
Yeah, so again, Facebook. Had a friend on there who had been talking about doing something together for quite a while. Her name's Liz. She did through hike the AT last year.
Okay.
She ended up doing a flip flop through hike after an injury midway through, but she did go back and finish it all. And she had done some paddling before, so I just kind of threw out the idea, and she's like, "Yep, I'm in. The boyfriend and I will come along," and that was that. We just the four of us decided we were going to do it, and we went and did it.
Awesome.
So
And you've talked with them, but you had never met them previously.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we did meet one time pretty shortly before. We actually were all at a concert together. Didn't plan to go together. We just happened to be at the same concert, so we did meet up, hung out there. Realized that everything clicked with all of us, that we were all going to get along fine before the trip.
Okay. Any Michael wanted to know earlier if since it's Shark Week, did you guys get into any shark/kayak adventures?
Unfortunately, no sharks. There were a ton of trout. So the upper section of that river, especially up like Baptist to Cedar Grove, that's trophy trout fishing. So the few boats that we did see were pretty much all anglers out there. They have
Which
slot limits and
you guys didn't do that though, did you? Or
no,
did
we
you guys?
didn't.
Okay.
Nope, we didn't plan on any fishing. We were planning on the river taking us a lot longer than what it actually took us, so we figured we were going to be paddling basically all day. Hindsight, we probably could have fished and slowed the trip down, but things to know for the future.
Okay. So
But yeah, no fishing. Just saw a whole bunch of them.
okay. And then do you mind if we show a little bit of the intro? You put
Yeah.
together a little kind of teaser, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's
So this
watch
will be
this thing.
the trailer for the video.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was Cave Spring.
Cave Spring.
Yep,
That-
that
that's-
was probably the highlight of the trip for me.
That's pretty cool. That had some interesting stuff in there. It looked like there was enough of. I'm going to go back to it because I just. You've got like the cliff faces that you're dealing with. there weren't many rapids though, right, on this, since it's more of the beginner stuff.
Yeah, no. So this river's rated class 1, sometimes class 2, and everything was probably class 1 when we were there. Nothing
That's
was
cool too.
super scary. That's those 360 cameras, man. Um, and then most of the caves in the Ozarks or in the Ozark National Scenic River area are all closed. There's only a select few that are actually open that you can go inside of.
Okay.
Cave Spring is one of them, and the cool part is you can paddle all the way back into it. So in the main video, you'll see kind of me approaching it, and then I've got the 360 camera behind me, and it films me going all the way through it with a headlamp and coming back out. Pretty cool scene. It's one of my favorites from the whole video, so I think you guys will like that if you decide to sit through the video with us Friday night.
Well, wasn't that too? I'm trying to think. Was that the graphic that you sent me to on? Like, if we pull this thing back up, is that you going through?
Yep.
Um,
So that
Cave
is
Spring?
Cave Spring. That actually wasn't even a picture. That was a screen grab from a 360 clip that's in the video. And then I hit it with Lightroom and kind of tightened it up a little bit. 360 footage in the dark isn't the best
No.
unless you buy the new camera that just came out. That's like $700, which I am not doing yet.
Yes. Yeah.
Yet.
Right. Yet. Okay.
Let's see what some of it looks like first before making that kind of an investment.
So, how big was the cave? I mean, how?
It wasn't huge. I mean, you could paddle back in. It definitely got dark. It only took a couple minutes to paddle all the way to the back of it and then back out. So
Okay.
when you turn around at the back of the cave, you can still see the entrance to it. So it's
Okay.
not huge, but it's definitely neat to go inside and see. I've never been able to do anything like that. I don't have anything like that locally when we're paddling where you can paddle into a cave.
Yeah.
And that, when I looked at the current river, that was the first picture I saw of the current river was Cave Spring. and that hooked me right away. I'm
All
like,
right.
I want to do that. I want to go there.
I gotcha.
So, but yeah, that was Cave Spring. Lots of cliffs, lots of just natural scenery. There was a little bit in there. Camera doesn't capture it as well, but the morning mist and fog over the river was just amazing. Getting out on the river, I think we were on the river by 8 a.m., which is a shocker. That's something that I never do on trips is get going before 9 or 10 or maybe 11 sometimes. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
we were on the river by 8 and that fog was awesome. So that's just a quick cell phone shot of Cave Spring looking into it from the river. And then that was a little further down, so that's the next point after Cave Spring is
Okay.
Pull Tight Spring. Yeah.
And then that was the video. Okay. So what was before
was
that?
the
Yeah,
video.
that's you guys getting ready to go in.
Yep.
Is that
So
coming out
that's
the other
Cave
side?
Spring. Actually, that was so the cave you go in and then come back out. So I'd already gone in at this point, and then we beached the boats. And if you look behind that canoe, the green canoe, there's a little trail that goes up there, so you can actually walk into the cave some too, and you can jump off the side into the cold river, which we did that, and it just absolutely takes your breath away. It's like you're doing the polar plunge when you jump into it.
Wow, they got a lot of stuff in that canoe. They got like coolers, and it's about the most overstuffed canoe I think I've ever seen.
And they were really cool people. They had a big Arctic cooler. Their names are actually Scott and Ashley. So we bounced back and forth on the river with them quite a bit over the rest of that day.
Okay.
And they were really cool. There's a couple scenes that they're in the video. I'm not going to spoil it. I'll let you guys watch that to see it. But they definitely pop in and out of it.
Okay.
And then this was up above Cave Spring and above Acres Ferry. So this was Welch Spring. Yep. So Welch Spring was just after, or it was in between Cedar Grove and Acres Ferry. So this was the last cool spot that we saw before we camped the first night.
Okay.
Welch Spring actually has that as well. So that is the Welch Hospital ruins. It's
Oh,
just an old
wow.
ruin that's still there. There's a staircase up there on the left where you can go up and look in through the top windows. They are all gated up. You can't go into it, which is, in my opinion, pretty awesome because it doesn't get tore up or defaced inside of it. So it's all just natural ruin inside.
Okay.
Um, but this was a hospital a long, long time ago that somebody believed that the cool air from the natural spring had healing ability to help with asthma and some other ailments.
Right.
And so they wanted people to go to that hospital to breathe that natural air. There used to be access to a cave that went down below where you could get down into it and breathe that air. Um, the downside is it was really difficult to get to because it's in the middle of nowhere, and to get to it you would have to go down some pretty crazy like old dirt and gravel roads, and it was really inaccessible, so it never really took off
You
is
can't get
some
there
of the
by
history on
kayak?
it. I mean, you could, but if you're suffering from a bunch of ailments, you're probably not kayaking down rivers
They
either.
put you in the
um,
middle, right? Like you get a
there
three-person
you go.
canoe, and you get the
There
like
you
the
go.
seat where you put your head back and your feet up,
Yeah,
and the other two people paddle you down.
yeah, it's possible. Um, and then that was Medlock Spring. So this was the first spring that we came to. So this was up at the top of the river. This was the first main stop that we had. And there's actually a little cave up there too at the top, which I didn't even look at it because you can't go into the caves. But again, spring water just freezing cold. Felt great to sit in it. We did filter water out of that as well. That was one of the nice things was filtering water out of the springs. It was clean. It was cool. So it was just a great resource for water. Fill up a couple bottles there, and then
Yeah,
you're not filtering river water. So
that's
just a
pretty
couple
awesome.
pictures from the trip. Um,
Nice.
so yeah,
So what didn't go well about it, or what would you change?
I'd make the trip longer. I would definitely
So
make the trip longer. That
how
was the
how long
number one
was the trip?
problem. So the trip ended up being 35 miles, and we planned 3 days, 2 nights, and blew through it in a day and a half. It just it felt like such a tease. All the planning, all the prep work, the drive, all that to get down there. And we started at noon on one day and we're off the river around 6 p.m. the second day. I definitely would have done a longer trip. And the next one that I plan will be a much, much longer trip. I'd like to do something in the ballpark of 100 miles. And that way I'm guaranteed to be out there somewhere 4, 5, 6 days, something like that.
Okay.
Um, it doesn't have to be 100. That's not like a bucket list, like, oh, I'm going to do a 100-mile trip down a river. But I want to plan something bigger, longer like that, so that I don't run into that again. I mean, it was amazing in every way. It was an incredible introduction into kayak camping. Such a just amazing place. Like I can't wait to go back to that area, but it was just too darn short. That
Right.
was the biggest problem.
Well, I know what would slow a trip like that down. What would
Yeah.
work really well, yeah, is you just add some portaging in the middle of it. You know, where you actually have to see all the gear laying on the ground. You have to come back for that stuff. So you grab the kayak or the canoe, and you hike, say, a mile down the road. You
Yeah,
know, and
that
then
looks awful.
you got to lay it down, and then you got to go get your stuff and load it back in the canoe and go from there. So that
Yeah.
was some of the video from the Boundary Waters trip, which I'm putting the video together for that. But we had a blast doing that. So we didn't go nearly as far as you did. I think our total route might have been 20 miles. Maybe a little
Yeah,
bit
but
more than that.
it's
But
such a different paddling experience.
oh, it totally is, and it's so much fun. Just sprinkling in some fishing, some base camping. We primarily did a loop where every night we were at a different location. Um, so it was this is us going through a short little section where it was like tiny little lakes, that might go down into almost like a little stream or river, and then you'd stop and you'd have to hike, carry everything to the next little lake or creek or whatever. And,
Wow.
everybody's carrying the canoes off to the side. You might have another group coming behind you. But like on that video, you can see we probably came on just in the back end of that little tiny lake and then just came through. And now you're on this section of trail and you just have to hike through. And then some lakes will get a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger. And some of these, like we went through this narrow little stream where you'd kind of bottom out. I was able to get out of the boat onto some of the shoreline and walk along the shoreline as my son was in the front of the boat. And he was able, then the boat kind of rose up enough to make it through the shallow end. If not, I would have had to get out, and it was like 2 feet of mud at the bottom of this. And it was only like 3 or 4 feet deep. So you really didn't want to be walking down the creek because you might be knee deep in mud, getting stuck and that sort of thing if you're not careful. So there was a little trail that kind of runs along the side. But
this is so drastically different from what we did. Hey, by the way, everybody, you are seeing the YouTube premiere of the first footage from Andy's trip.
Yeah. That's Michael. I think he's carrying my pack. Yeah, because you can see the GoPro and the Garmin InReach. So he would help carry some of the gear, while the dads would carry some of the heavier stuff.
Yeah, this is a very, very different world from where I was. I mean, just crystal clear water, rivers moving 2 to 3 miles an hour, only one small portage, that was it. This is just a whole nother world from where we were.
Look at that pack.
Whew.
Big freaking portage pack.
I didn't even bring a pack. My stuff was just in the dry hatches and a few dry bags. No backpack. Nope. Didn't need one.
Yeah, this was it's a lot of fun though. The fishing is spectacular up there. For some reason I was the only one that seemed to have much luck, but it wasn't for lack of trying. A bunch of the boys were giving it a go, and one of the other dads was having a hand in it. But the walleye, the northern pike, some smallmouth bass, and there's some lake trout in there. We didn't catch any of the lake trout though, but had a lot of fun.
That looks like a lot of fun in the rain.
Well, there's not a whole lot you can do when it opens up. This is us coming out to Cherokee Lake, which is one of the kind of gems in that area, the boundary waters. And some great fishing, but it was miserable coming in. And then the next day, we ended up camping way up over here. And it was like the last campsite we looked at. We went right into this huge loop around this massive lake, and all the sites were taken. And the rule kind of in the boundary waters is if, it's first come, first serve, you don't reserve sites. You just have a permit that gets you into the backcountry. And then once you're back in there, you have to stay at one of the official sites, but it's first come, first serve. So you really want to get there early in the day. The last thing you want to be doing is, paddle around at dinner time trying to find a campsite, because if they're all taken, you have to keep going. And you might have to go way out of your way if it's a really busy section. So
I can definitely relate to the rain. It opened up on us a little bit on day 2, and nothing you can do but keep pushing on or get off for a little bit. But if you're in the middle of the lake, you're kind of out of options.
No, it's just you're watching for lightning. I mean, that's the big thing. We didn't mind the rain as much. This is my 3rd time up there in 4 years, and the second time we didn't get much rain at all. But the first and the last time, we had stuff like this where you were just paddling for, miles on end, where you were just in the rain and you just kind of had to deal with it. But we didn't have to deal with thunder, at least not while we were on the water. So it really worked out well that, we didn't have that issue. So, you're able to get
Yeah,
into
we
camp and get set up, and then the lightning would come and all of that. So, but here's that same lake that evening. You can tell the
wow.
storm's pushing off to the southeast, and the wind was still picking up, but like it's gorgeous, and you can see there's all the storm clouds that had rolled through that day. So pretty spectacular stuff.
So I have
Um,
a question for you on this one.
yeah,
So I know you've done this one before. You've done this one before with scouts, and you've done it with just your family, right?
that's correct.
So looking at this footage, looks like you have some awesome footage from it. How did you go about planning filming this trip, knowing that you were renting canoes, so you couldn't pre-mount your cameras?
Yeah. Well,
So what
yeah.
was your game plan going in so that you could have footage like this and put together a video? Because I
Well,
know I was able to
yeah.
pre-prep everything, and you
Yeah.
didn't have that
It
luxury.
makes it a lot more difficult. So I have a GoPro mount that just has a clamp. I forget what it's called, but it'll clamp to the thwart of the boat and pretty much hold it in place. Okay. You saw that one clip that I was showing earlier where the camera actually slides on the thwart, and all of a sudden you just see the sky because the camera's fallen down in that. But it allows me to then pick it up and clip it to different parts of the canoe. And then I also had my 360 camera, which I haven't edited any of that video yet. So that should be interesting to provide some different stuff. But it helped that this was my third time going. So I've learned something every time I've gone just about filming. The challenge that I have is on this kind of trip when I'm going with, this was a big group. If we look, this was just our crew. So four dads and the boys. But my first job is I bring them home safe. Like that's the priority. Secondarily is your own enjoyment, and then lastly is filming anything. So that makes it difficult when you're trying to put together something like this, because you want to, for the YouTube side of things, for putting together a video, you want to be able to tell the story. You want to have capture the interesting things that happen. If there's really anything out of the ordinary, you'd love to get that on camera. When you're with the boys, that kind of goes out the window a little bit, and like you see one of the boys struggling with something, and you set everything down and you go take care of it. If there's an issue with cooking, if there's an issue with hanging the bear bags, if there's an issue on the water, any of those kind of things, it's like, okay, set the camera down, put it away, go deal with what needs to be dealt with, and then come back. And unfortunately, sometimes what that leaves you with is gaps. You'll get through a period of time and you're like, ooh, that 2-3 hours went by and this happened, and I would have loved to have gotten that on camera, but I couldn't because somebody was getting overheated and we were worried about keeping them hydrated. All those kind of things come into play. So I do the best that I can. It's probably the bigger task once I get home and I start piecing together and I start seeing what I have and what I don't have and what I'm missing. And then you get into kind of the creative side and you go, okay, well, how can I make this work? And I want to include some things, and maybe you're cutting out whole sections because it just won't work. That kind of stuff comes into play. But yeah, I would love to. And so, you talked about, I've got the mounts on the boat and I can get the cameras and the tethers and everything set up, and, we're all set, and I have to just kind of wing it. So there's definitely some risk there too, of like you swamp a canoe or you flip it over, and is that thing going to really hold? Is there is it tied off to something else? Is there is there a little floaty on it? I did that one year. Those kind of things you can do. But I would love to get, and it's on my bucket list, to get my own boat at some point in time, my own canoe that I can
Before next
mount.
spring.
Yeah, before next spring. Well, even if not, I'm renting something if we're doing a trip. But if I can get something before next spring, and then you can customize it and mount the equipment, the camera gear, all of that kind of stuff, and you're secure and you're comfortable and you know it. And then you get to know the craft a little bit better. These, we had some 3-person canoes, we had some tandem canoes. I'm starting to get used to them because they're the same Winona ones that we've rented every year. But I would much rather be in a solo boat, all things being equal, and then I can kind of go from boat to boat to just see how everybody's doing. So in the future, that's what I'd like to do. I'd love to be able to do that trip.
Is that
Do
how
the
you're
Boundary Waters.
justifying it? Is
What's
so
that?
you can go boat to boat easier? Is that how
Well,
you're justifying the purchase?
No, because I also want to go solo. So for me, it makes more sense that the solo boat's the only one that I can do both of those at the same time, in the same year. I can do a solo trip, or 3 guys going out and they all have their own boat kind of thing. I've got mine, they've got theirs, and we can go. And then you do this kind of group event, and I can still be like when we did the training stuff, I had to be kind of with every group that came out. Okay, this group's done, they graduate, they go back, the next couple boats come out, we run them through all the rescue training kind of stuff. But it's tough when then you've got somebody with you the whole time. It'd be a lot easier if you were just solo and you could deal with that. So I don't know. That's just my dream, my goal. I would love to do that, and then do other trips. Like I would totally do the current river kind of thing, like that guy was doing in a canoe and a freaking Yeti cooler or whatever. Hey, Johnny.
Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah. Do I have to worry? Let's see. Do I have to worry about grizzly bears up there? I don't. Just black bears. So that's the thing that you worry about. That, and let me show you this. We saw this on the first couple minutes in the water. Well, actually, there's 2 things that you got to worry about outside of the bears. One is this guy. Big fat porcupine. That was our first campsite on the drive up. So what we found out was one of the dads had hung up his hammock, and the porcupine was in the tree. So the thing was like making noise at him all night long, and he was like, I swear there is something up this tree. And the minute he gets out of his hammock and packs it up and like goes and puts it in the car, this thing comes down the tree and heads off. So that was the first thing. The other one, well, there's a couple here. I'll show you because I think you guys will get a kick out of it. So this was pretty cool too. We saw bald eagles like all over the place. So it was really cool that we would be like, gosh, where is that?
There was
it's in the tree right on the peninsula overlooking this lake that we were going by, and it's just staring at us as we went by. But it didn't care that we were there. It was, totally normal. Yeah, there's this random cat that was at one of the campgrounds that the boys thought was kind of funny, that it would just kind of hang out with us. And it had a tag on. Where's that picture? The cat just came out and started following people around this was a state park in Wisconsin. And the cat's tag, and I'm not kidding, said like, follow me on Instagram, and it had an address. And I was
awesome.
Like, this is probably like the ranger's cat or something like that from the property. I want to see if I can find the other video, because I think that would be...
What about raccoons up there?
We saw pine martens, no flying squirrels. I know Johnny would be curious to know that too.
That's a plus.
That was probably her next question is grizzly bears and then flying squirrels. But you get squirrels, raccoons. You'll get that kind of stuff. We'll get into camp. And then I'm trying to find. It was probably there it is. This guy,
Big old turtle.
big old snapping turtle.
Yeah.
So big freaking claws on that thing. Don't want to get your hand anywhere near that. Swimming right under the boat. I think we're going to need a bigger boat. But so that was about the wildlife. Yeah, no sharks.
Was that your Shark Week comment?
That was my throwback for Peterson because I know he needs a little bit of that. There's one though that's really from a cute standpoint, and I'll show it if I can find it. It would have been, let's see, they swam the first day, so it's probably this one. There's Mama, like a river otter, and she's got one of her babies in her mouth. And I think she was uncomfortable getting close to us, and there's a bunch of them. There's like 5 of them. So instead of like hopping down the shore where we were kind of sitting eating breakfast, she noticed that we were there, but she just swam this little arc around where we were. And then, so here she comes back out. She's right here. She's like, all right, we'll back up. She just goes like a safe distance back around. And again, there's a bunch over on this side that she comes back, grabs one of her babies by like the scruff of the neck, and then drags them out. And
so this is kind of wild. Same time frame. You were up in Minnesota. I was all the way down in Missouri, and we saw a lot of the same wildlife: bald eagles, river otters. I've got a lot of that stuff on video too. Look at her go.
I don't know.
She's like,
I'm like, she's drowning
child.
him. Like the guy's head's beneath the water. She's breathing fine. No, I'm kidding. But
that's wild though. That we saw a lot of the same stuff in 2 very different environments.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So that's kind of like the other stuff that you'll see. The loons are real big up there. So the call at night is, that's the only place I've been, I think, that I can think of that we've heard the loons. But it's just a distinct, unique call late at night. It's always when it's getting dark or right after it's been dark for a little while. You'll hear the loons from, way out on the other side of the lake calling to whoever. And it's just such a cool sound. It always just reminds me of that. So if I ever hear that, I think of that period of time. I'm still watching this video in the background of this guy. Is that Mama? I don't know if that's Mama or one of the babies, and he's waiting for her to come back. It's the coolest thing. We were sitting there for like 20 minutes just like, all right, everybody stand back far enough. But we were just, I don't know, mesmerized by that. So there's some cool stuff that we've got for that trip. And like I said, it was 7 days, 6 nights. So it's a pretty long trip. We had like a group of 9. So that was the max that you could have at any one campsite. And the amount of food, because you're packing for like teenage boys and then the dads, like we had 2 huge, probably 60, 70 liter packs that were completely full of food. And that wasn't everything. And so you're trying to haul up like, I don't know, 100 pounds worth of food up into a tree somewhere and trying to find a branch and it's all like spruce and pine up there. So there's not like big trees with big branches. They're all kind of like narrow. So finding spots to hang food is difficult and a challenge, but man, it is just like one of the most amazing places. It's one of those places that I will go back. I would go back almost every year if I could. It's that awesome. And I love the fishing. I love the being on the water. There's a little bit of the portaging that you have to deal with. But you can totally customize your own route. So, we went up and had 3 different groups, and one of the groups, I think, for the entire week had 2 different locations that they camped. So that, well, like one place for like 3 or 4 nights, and then another spot for like 3 or 4 nights, like one lake over. So they base camped and then just kind of day tripped and like explored in the boats, but then they're not carrying all of their tents and gear and food and all of that, doing all the portaging. It's just
Wondering
you
if
know,
they're going to find a campsite.
yeah, I think they were more like, I just want a campsite. I don't really want to be crushing miles. Not that like we did a ton, but we were going to a different spot every time. So there was only 1 night, 2 nights, or one time that we stayed at the same campground a second night. So every other time was a brand new one. And on this trip, I had only stayed at, of all the different campsites that we took, there was only one of them that was familiar to me, so that I had stayed at one time previously. All the other ones were completely new locations, completely new layouts. So that was kind of neat. So
I have another question for you about Boundary Waters. I've never been, never really looked at it. I know it looks awesome. Um, I
that's
know it's
because it
Boundary
is.
Waters canoe area. Do they allow kayaks, or do you have to be in a canoe?
That's a good
That's
question.
probably a stupid question,
No,
but I don't know.
I think they just called it the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness way back in the day, and I want to say that was back in like the 60s and 70s, and maybe it was later than that, but about whenever they designated that as a wilderness, it was known as kind of a canoeing hotspot. Going back in history, I mean, that was a place you
Hmm.
talked about like fur trading and people getting around by waterway. I mean, there's so many lakes up there. It seems like there's almost as much, lake than land mass. It's just there's lakes everywhere. So we do see other watercraft out there from time to time. Where we're at, there's no motorized anything, but we've seen not kayaks that I'm sure they're allowed, no problem. But we've seen like paddle boards. Like people will be on
Okay.
like stand up paddle boards, doing like day trip activities. I remember it was our first trip there, and we were trying to. It was our last day, and we're trying to get back to the dock at the Outfitters by 10 a.m. And we got up and we thought we had plenty of time, and we got onto our final lake, and the dock's at the southern end of the lake, but the wind's just coming straight at you. So, and we've got pretty young guys at the time that we're paired with. So, Joey was 13 maybe at the time, maybe 14, and little guy. So, not a lot of power. It's a big challenge. We were all struggling, and we're getting to the end of this, and it's taken us like twice as long as what it should have. And I think it's like 10:30. We thought we'd take like 20 minutes on this lake. It's taken us like 45 minutes just to get to the dock because of the winds. And we get to the other side, and here coming the other direction is a couple, each on a paddleboard, and they've got dogs with them just sitting on the paddleboard, and they're just going the other direction with the wind. And we're like, sweat pouring down our faces, and we're trying to get to the end, and they're just like, this is the easiest thing in the world. And I just thought, you show offs, like we're dying over here. And they've got the dog that's like lounging on its side. And I just remember thinking that was such a distinction between the two. So,
Cool.
but yeah, you do see some of that stuff.
I just hadn't seen anything. I mean, the limited videos that I've watched or seen on it, everything's always been canoe. And I know everything on like the current river and other rivers, it's all canoe rental. Well, they rent canoes and kayaks, but
Okay.
just curious how popular it was because everything I had seen was all canoes up there.
Well, and I think one of the big reasons why canoeing in my mind would be prioritized is because of how much portaging you have to do. And I don't know how difficult or easy it is to do that with a kayak. So with a canoe, the nice thing about it is it's real easy to throw your gear from inside the canoe out to the shoreline. You can empty your canoe pretty quickly. like you saw in some of the video, you can then turn that upside down, throw it on your shoulders, and carry it. And they're making these, Kevlar fusion canoes where the ones we were carrying, the 2-person, I think were like 42 pounds, 43 pounds,
Wow.
something like that. And the 3-person canoes were like 51. So, and they balance perfectly, that the harness does. So you balance the yoke right on your shoulders, and you can, the front and the back end don't really move much. So they're great for covering ground in that kind of environment, getting to the other side, laying it back down, throwing the stuff in the bed, and you're off. I don't know if taking a kayak, in my mind, I would think, gosh, are they that light? And two, are they that easy to carry longer distance? Would you throw that over your head if you've got 3/4 of a mile to hike with it? And can you take stuff in and out of it really easily, or is that a challenge?
That's a challenge.
Is it?
That wouldn't be fun. Yeah. Nope. I mean, short portages around dams, stuff like that. It's easy. You just leave everything in, 2 people, and one on the front, one on the back, and just haul the boat. But
Right.
getting all the gear out and moving it, and yeah, that's not easy.
Right.
And
you
some
could,
guys will carry like a duffel bag just in case you have to get off a river, in case you have to do a really long portage. Toss everything in the duffel bag, haul that up, and then come back and get empty boats for the longer portage. But it's definitely work. It's a lot more work
Right.
than a canoe would be.
Now, the nice thing about Boundary Waters is it's choose your own adventure, so you can completely customize. Hey, which route do we want to go? Do we want to pick something that maybe has some rivers, that has some fewer, shorter portaging options, and you can completely customize and go. There's dozens of different drop-in spots in the Boundary Water. So, we go back to the same one because we know it, we're comfortable with it, and it works. But there's no reason you couldn't go to any of the other dozen ones if, hey, maybe this is a better kayak route. There's less portaging. There's more, streams between lakes, kind of thing. That might be something that if you're taking a kayak up there, you're going to specifically look, like you did for the current. Hey, we're going to look for something that fits this criteria list that we want to do. That's roughly the same distance, that we're looking for. So it could work. I think it could work. Don't know
Makes
that
sense.
I want to do it, but
Yeah.
if you've got a kayak already,
I really enjoyed just sitting on the kayak and paddling down the river and not having to portage.
Well, yeah, that's how you do a 3-day trip in a day and a half.
Yeah, that's true. And then feel like you just got teased and now you have to go home and you just want to keep going down the river. But
Yeah.
hey, live and learn. Now I know how to
Yep.
make it bigger next time.
Johnny also wants to know, did we have Velveeta? Now, on my trip, we didn't. But what I will say is one of the dads bought Velveeta and was planning on taking it until I informed him that you can also just take hard cheddar. So we went and got some of the really like extra sharp cheddar, and that stuff kept 3-4 days on trail, no problem. So we were adding that to burritos. We were adding that to scrambled eggs. We were adding that to just about to chili, you name it. So we've moved up in the world from the Velveeta. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the hard cheddar was really good. So what about you? Did you have any memorable food choices from your trip?
No Velveeta. We also had the hard cheddar though. We had hard cheddar and salami in a tortilla. That was the lunch wraps. We did campfire cheeseburgers, and that turned out awesome. So I was hoping to get my hands on an Apex Giant grill before the trip, and unfortunately Ben was off grid for a little bit at Hilltop Packs and wasn't able to get me one in time. But he said he would have sent me one, so thanks for that, Ben. Would have been fun to have.
Was that because he almost lost his thumb? Is that
No, this was before the thumb versus paper cutter death match.
Yeah.
But yeah, it worked out. I mean, I bought the Vargo titanium grill, and it's not the best in the world, but it works. So campfire cheeseburgers were awesome. I had fresh fruit on the trip. I had oranges. I had a cooler bag with ice in it. So like I had cold beer. I had all sorts of luxuries on this one, which is drastically different from what I normally do. I am usually ultralight,
Yeah.
cutting toothbrush handles and
Eating
leaving Body Glide
bars,
at home,
not
and
cooking
yep,
anything.
yep, being stupid. And this was a very different side of things. I had stuff. I had a home cooked chicken and a bunch of stuff to make chicken quesadillas, and we got off river too quick, so didn't get to enjoy that one. But had a whole lot of real food planned, similar to what we did on the Pictured Rocks winter trip, where we actually had real food to eat.
Yeah.
I brought nothing dehydrated. Everything was real fresh food. Um, and I mean, it was a cool, different side of things.
So we've learned if you have a boat to haul your food or a sled, you'll eat better than if you have to carry it on your back. Is that what
This
you're saying?
this is absolutely true. And even at that, so that's my boat, the orange and yellow one with the yellow bag attached to the front of
Yep.
it.
And the two
Um,
cameras.
Yep, two cameras, one at front and then the 360 camera in the back. But um, I actually overpacked on this trip. I brought a whole bunch of crap that I just didn't use. So
Well, you had
even
a 3-day trip in a day and a half, so I would expect you on the
yeah,
food side, you had like twice as many meals as what you ended up eating.
that's true. But just the other stuff, the luxury items that I brought, like I didn't use hardly any of it. So I think I learned that I'm more into simplicity. On the food side, definitely a win. Like I will definitely bring real food on kayak camping trips, on
Oh
sled
yeah.
trips. That's a non-negotiable. That's happening. That's awesome. But all the luxury items like clotheslines and stuff like that, and extra tarps and all that. Like yeah, I'll bring one, but I'm not bringing a whole bunch of extra stuff. It's more work to set it
Yeah.
up, more work to pack it up, and it's just not how I do things. So I like to spend more time on the river paddling, exploring, and less time at camp when I'm doing this versus just sitting around on a gravel bar. Like I want to keep going. So,
Right.
um, and that's things that you learn when you go through and you
Yeah.
do these things. And I mean, I had a table packed. I had a bunch of stuff that I just plain didn't use or didn't need. Stuff that I'd seen other people use and just
Yeah.
decided to try it out. Hey, that sounds like fun. That sounds smart. And then you learn that's just not me. I prefer simplicity. So
Yep. I
yeah,
think that's
learn it.
part of the learning process. We've gone through
Yeah.
that completely with backpacking. I'm definitely going through that with the canoe camping stuff. The stuff, you saw that video a little bit of me with that huge pack, but to be honest, that pack's probably about 2/3 full. And I think the first time I went, the thing was packed to the max, and there was dozens of things probably in there that I never touched once during the entire trip. So this time going back, um, definitely lightened the load. And I ended up using that pack to help carry some of the food stuff, the extras. When the first couple days when we couldn't fit them in the food bags, they would just go into my pack until we got into camp. So slowly over time, you kind of economize to a degree. You go further than I do. I think you're more comfortable being a little bit more minimalist. I like a few more creature comforts, or I'm willing to tote the extra weight for that benefit. Where I think you say, yeah, I don't know if the benefit's really that worth it to me. I'd rather have, the lighter pack, the lean and mean, while we're on trail kind of thing.
I thrive on the simple, simple, simple. The more simple it is, the better off I am. Um, I do want to talk real quick since you pulled this picture up, just about
Yeah.
the boat and the setup on the boat, just in
Okay.
case anyone's curious about that. So, a couple things. That boat is the Perception Carolina 12. We talked about that.
You got your stickers on
Yeah,
the side.
I do.
Nice.
I got stickers. I do have stickers. I always have stickers. If you haven't seen
Thinking
the back of my Jeep, you'll know. You'll know when you see it.
Durston gets a sticker on the
Durston
boat.
does get a sticker. Hey, I brought the X Mid 10 on this trip.
All right, all
I
right.
brought the X Mid 2 again. So a couple things. First off, the yellow bag on the front. That's an overboard deck bag. It's a 20-liter dry bag. It does have a zipper on top that has another dry compartment. Was perfect for throwing phone, sunglasses, that stuff. Inside of that bag, I was able to throw quick grab stuff like snacks for the day. I had a towel in there. I had a bunch of little knickknacks. I had a first aid kit in there. Just anything that I would need quick access to without digging through the hatches,
Okay.
which was awesome because it's right in front of you. I had the rain jacket in there. Just anything that I would want quick access to that I wouldn't want to have to pull off the river and dig through the dry compartments for.
Okay.
There is a bilge pump. Anytime you go out in a sit-in boat, you should have a bilge pump. Just
Is,
getting in and out of the boat, you're going to get water
is that
if
this thing?
you. Yep, that's that thing.
You know what
Just
we
a little
use in
hand
a
pump
you know what we
bilge.
use in a canoe?
What?
A cup.
A cup, yeah.
Yeah.
So this one's real fast because you just pump the handle on it and it just squirts water out like a fire hydrant. But they're awesome for, if you cut a corner too hard and you swamp a little bit, it's really fast to get that water out of your boat. And they don't weigh much, so they're definitely worth bringing. Um, Camera mounts. So we talked about having two cameras on the boat. Both cameras are on RAM mounts. They are both the Insta360 1RS cameras. So the front one has a 4K just normal action cam lens on it,
Yep.
and the back camera, I left a 360 lens on it all the way through. So I could point it at me, I could pan it around and point it at other people. It was a ton of editing on the back end, but
Yeah, they
it
always
was
are.
it was so cool to be able to get all those different shots and different angles. Um,
Savior.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Say hi, Joey.
Hi, Joey.
Hi, Joey.
I'm Joey, but yeah.
Joey just got back from his last major conditioning session for high school soccer before tryouts. And he's like, I'm going to go. I got to be early. I'm a senior. So he shows up 15 minutes early and then texts me, Dad, I forgot my running shoes.
Oops.
So I'm like, this is like the biggest running practice of the entire season, probably. He's like, yep, I have my cleats and we're going to go run on the track. So I got to go find out. I think they had to run 2 miles tonight and have it be timed. And my freshman had to run it with the earlier bunch. And now we'll see how the senior did with the older boys. So it's that time.
Well,
So
good luck to him.
Yeah, absolutely. So he just walked in to interrupt to say, thanks for bringing my shoes.
I only had two more small things to add to this. Number one, if you have cameras on a boat, tether them. Don't be stupid. Don't be like me and lose your camera in the river. Tether them. You can sort of see it on the front camera. There's a little red cord hanging down in front of it that is clipped onto the boat. That's going to the action cam mount. So that way, if the mount breaks, you don't lose the camera. Second thing, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see there's a second paddle attached to the back of the kayak. I actually broke my first paddle on day one, so
Nice.
didn't completely break it, but cracked the carbon fiber on it and ended up using the second paddle the rest of the trip. So on these long trips, having a backup paddle is a smart decision. And that was it.
Okay.
So that was the boat. Everything else was in the dry hatches. Andy's running away.
All right. Change the lighting a little bit. It's getting dark in here.
Yeah.
So,
Welcome back, buddy.
yeah. So why don't we transition? We talked a little bit about the paddle adventures. We've got something else coming up. So why don't we talk a little bit about what we decided to do? We just pulled the trigger on it. Let's see if we can go in. Gosh. do we even have? I don't know if I probably have it planned in here somewhere. See if I can pull that up, but I'll do that off camera.
You had it in Garmin.
Yeah, I'm going into the Garmin one just to see.
So let's talk first about what our plans were for the fall.
Oh, yeah. It's going back to like, I don't know, 18 months ago.
Yeah.
'Cause
18 months ago.
That's really when we started talking about going out to the winds in Wyoming.
We have.
That was the big plans that we meant to do last fall. Mm-hmm. And because of fires and costs and some other stuff, we just said, why don't we scrap it? I think we could do something cheaper and still awesome. And I proposed the Holy Cross Wilderness, which is west of Denver, Colorado, which I think worked out just fine. I think we had a good time.
I was
if you haven't seen those videos, go check those out. You were skeptical. I can pull. So this is Garmin from our trips last year. So this is just west of Denver. We had the Holy Cross Wilderness Loop, which we did 27 to 30 miles. I think this was the estimated track that we were going to take, going around the Mount of the Holy Cross, which is a 14er in the area. And then on our off day, we were going to go down here and do Mount Elbert, which was...
Not we were going to do. We did do.
Well, that was the plan to do on the last day. And then we saw that it was supposed to like snow on the last day potentially. So we said, all right, let's do this on the first day because, we're so acclimated to the altitude. Why don't we do this on day one? So we did Mount Elbert on day one. Again, go check out those videos. We've got both of those on Smolder Outdoors and Annie Parish Outdoors. And so we... this year wanted to go to the winds, and since that again doesn't look like it's working out for us, we had to come up with a backup. So do you want to tell them what we're doing?
So we are, shocker, going back to Colorado, and we are going to return to the Maroon Bell Snowmass Wilderness out by Aspen. We are going to do a different loop in the area. This one's going to be about 45-ish miles you're expecting, I think, right?
Yeah, something I think like with that. The whole thing, I think the mileage that I show thinks that it'll be less than that, but I always find these GPSs to be a little bit underestimating. So I put together a couple different ones. I think I took out the big one. It's going to be... I mean, this shows the legs of it. I don't know that I have the big one. Do I have the Capitol Creek? Yeah, no, that's the Avalanche.
But that's the area that we're going to is Capitol Creek, Maroon Bell, Snowmass. The loop's actually going to overlap with 4PL a little bit. The trip that we did 2 years ago out there. So... we're going to get to do my favorite pass again, where we climbed all day, hopefully going the other direction, undecided. Not really looking forward to that climb again, but we'll get to do Trail Rider. We'll get to see Snowmass Lake, Snowmass Mountain again. And we'll go right past a bucket list 14er for me. So not one that we're going to do on this trip, but Capitol Peak is on the bucket list for me. Going through the Knife's Edge and summiting that 14er is something that it's got to happen. It's something that I do want to do at some point. Just need to get a little more experience under my belt before I take on something like that. I'm just not there yet.
The Capitol Summit is, going along the Knife's Edge. They've had multiple people that fall into their deaths. It's not like
it's class
a lot of people
4,
look at it and go, "You're freaking nuts." I'm not doing that. This is probably the closest to the route that I'm able to find right now, except this is the slightly wider. It has the same starting point, but instead of coming down the valley to Snowmass, it takes the wider trail down to Willow. and then climbs up and over. What was that fourth pass that we did on the 4PL?
The fourth pass was Buckskin, but this
Buckskin.
one that we're going over is Trail Rider, isn't it?
Right. So this was the other option. So some people
Gotcha.
have this route. So Snowmass Lake is right here.
Yep.
And there's a trail that runs right down the creek through this valley. And that's the one we'll be taking. And it comes back out down here and connects to the trailhead here. The other option is coming from the trailhead and taking this more easterly course. You go to Willow Lake and then up and over the pass. And then you go up and over Buckskin down to Snowmass Lake and then up over Trail Rider. And then you start on the backside of the 4-pass loop. So a lot of people have mentioned that the Capitol Creek circuit is as epic as the Maroon Bells 4-pass loop, except with a fraction of the foot traffic. So if you want to get the views, if you want to get the elevation changes, if you want to get all of the, the flowers, the views, all of that stuff, you can find that, and you're circling a few of the 14ers. But we're only going to be doing a small little section that overlaps with the 4-pass loop, and then all of it's going to be kind of adjacent to that. So it should be a pretty awesome loop. And I show that it's just under 40 miles is what I showed. So, and then I don't have the full loop saved in here right now, but I've got, like, here's that loop that I was looking at just from, well, actually this is a different one. This is another one that I'm actually bookmarking for a later year. So we'll be hiking in kind of the central area here. And this is even a little further out west, the Avalanche Creek loop. That I thought was pretty interesting too. 36, 37 miles, 11,000 feet of vertical. So the one that we're doing is right about the same too. It's like 12 to 13,000 feet of vertical. We're going to do it in 5 days. So we're going to do from the trailhead to Snowmass Lake, Snowmass to Lake Geneva, Geneva to Avalanche, Avalanche to the Capitol Trail split, and then back to the main trailhead. So 5 days, 4 nights should be a lot of fun. This September, we actually booked it. So barring anything major, it's happening. I mean, we've paid real money. I hope it happens.
It's happening.
But I'm pretty excited. I think this will be a pretty awesome trip. So what are your thoughts?
4PL was a complete bucket list trip for me. It was one that when I saw it, it went straight to the top of my list, and then we ended up knocking it out fall 2020. And that area is amazing. It is so scenic, so beautiful. I can't wait to return. I mean, if there was somewhere that we had to shelve the wins a second year in a row for, I'm glad that we're returning to that area. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure it's going to kick our butts, but we should get a ton of awesome footage, ton of awesome pictures, and I'm sure a lot of great stories to
We're
share.
at a 6:30 average
So,
pace.
Definitely looking forward to it.
Keith, bro.
Awesome. I am too.
Yeah.
Should be a lot of fun. We've got some planning to do for that.
Yeah.
But we've got, I don't know, how many weeks do we have? What is it? The end of July 27th.
We
we've got,
leave September 14th.
is that right? Something like that.
Yeah.
So
About
we've got weeks to get.
7 weeks, something like that, 6 weeks.
I will be training like crazy. I encourage you to do the same. I know that you
should.
will. You should.
Yeah,
You should.
I need to. I should.
I've already started. I'm down about 10 pounds. So I'm pumped about that. I'm hoping to be down another 10 pounds before we go. So this doesn't help.
Yeah.
But
I was just gonna say, sitting at my computer drinking beer is helping me train for
No,
these
no.
mountains like
We,
you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, we'll have to do fewer live streams, and or we could do live streams from the gym.
From the gym.
Yeah,
There you
we'll
go.
be on the
Yeah.
treadmill. Just
Yep. No, the
That'll-
stair climber, man.
yeah,
You got to
We
get
did-
on the
oh,
stair
yeah.
climber.
Well, you can do the treadmill. It's just you put it at like a 15, and then you put your pack on, and you climb for like an hour. I did 1,000-foot
no.
vertical on the treadmill this week already once, so I'll be doing that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like a quarter of a day out there, right? Something like
Well,
that.
I think
Half
the
a day,
loop was
maybe.
like 12,000.
12,000, yeah.
Something in vertical. So I thought, yeah, that's fun. Now we'll do it over 5
Yeah.
days, but
That's
two
going
to
to be a lot
3,000
of
a day?
climbing. Yeah. You saw what kind of shape I was in after 5,000 on Elbert. Granted, that was over the course
That's
of
a lot for
5
one day.
miles.
I don't
Yeah.
think we've got any that are, they might be 2/3 of that or half of that maybe per day
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
Yep. I'll
be
get
fun.
ready. I'll get to work. I'm going to need to.
we'll need to. Well,
Yep.
we've been going for an hour and a half. I think that's probably long enough. We appreciate everybody out there. I think we've covered everything that we wanted to get to, the different paddling trips, and then talk a little bit about Colorado coming up. So I really appreciate you coming on, Brent, and spending some time and sharing some kayaking knowledge with us newbies, since you're the resident expert at this point. So
Oh, yeah. After an overnight, I'm
Yeah.
a total pro.
you've done one, so you know more than I do.
Yeah. Well, you're
So-
invited to the one in the spring. You just have to have a boat first. That's
But
all.
they have rentals out there, right? So wherever we decide to go.
Yeah, the 10-foot Jackson kayak. Yeah, have fun.
What could go wrong? Sounds
Yeah,
great.
have fun. That sounds
Everybody
fantastic.
loves
you do
the
that.
Jacksons. They're not as high as the Kestrels, but they're up there.
Right. Now look at you paying attention.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's for that petite frame paddler, though. So I think you're going to have to lose a
Oh.
little more than another 10 pounds if you want one of those.
I'm so on track for that. So I need the petite paddler package, please.
Get down to about $1.20, and that's the perfect yak for you, man.
All right, I got a little ways to go for that.
Anyways, thank you for
spring?
having
Yeah.
me, man. It was
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I actually got to join in on one of these and do one with you. And looking forward to doing some more in the future. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun recapping Colorado when we get back from that one too.
Yeah, we'll definitely do a live stream following that, just to talk about everything fresh in our minds. I think that's always kind of fun to do. So look forward to that. We are also on the channel doing a few other things. We're looking over the next 4 to 6 weeks to be having some conversations with a couple different vendors. So keep an eye out for that. I've wanted to do a series on that for a little while, and I think that's starting to come together. So I will announce more details coming up. Just good informational things for people that are looking at different gear, whether it's backpacking, just outdoor adventure kind of stuff, and who's doing great stuff. And we want to keep sharing that kind of information with the rest of the world. So we'll have some of them on to talk a little bit about what they're doing and what they're killing it at. So look forward to that. Other than that, that's all that I got. Thanks so much for Brent for stopping by, and until next time, everybody, be well.